guys, Happy New Year! It's 2025, so I figured let's start this year off with a bang. This is What If the Motives from Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc and Killing Harmony are switched, meaning both of these casts play each other's game. This is going to be a pretty interesting scenario because how these characters interact with not only each other, but the motives and the game at large is going to be vastly different depending on the motives that are being played. So without further ado, let's get started. We'll start with Trigger Happy Havoc, which is where Makoto wakes up at his desk, like in canon, and he goes to meet up with the other students, two of which are Sayaka and Kyoko, two people that he forms an innate connection with immediately. Well, Sayaka at first, Kyoko a little bit later, and then Monokuma introduces the killing game, Danganronpa. And so, the rules are simple: kill and get away with it, and you'll escape free, unharmed. Monokuma introduces the first motive, the first blood perk. For the first class trial, the students don't have to do one. If the black end comes forward and they are in fact the black end, then they get out of the school scot-free and nobody is harmed. Now, immediately, Sayaka has a breakdown because she wonders what's going to happen to her pop group without her there. Makoto, being the good boy that he is, goes to Sayaka to try and calm her down. However, she still has the plan to murder Leon. And so, this time, without Leon to basically defend himself, he is the first victim. Yeah, Leon is the first to die. Sayaka's plan succeeds this time, and now, when the body discovery announcement goes off, Monokuma comes up and says, "Whoever is the black end, come raise your hand." This is where Monokuma would tell the students about the class trial, where if the students get the black end right, then the black end will be executed. If they don't, then everyone except the black end will be executed. So now Sayaka has a choice to make. She can either risk the class trial where either she or everyone else except she will be killed, or she can take the first blood perk to save everybody. She goes for the latter option. She takes the first blood perk and escapes. So let's go ahead and put her up here. Yeah, she's not a snake like you all make her out to be. She's actually a good girl who actually likes Makoto and the rest of the students. So she definitely would take the first blood perk if it means she gets to not only save herself, but potentially Makoto as well, and everybody else. Chapter 2 begins with Monokuma giving everyone their motive videos. Now, not everybody gets their own motive video. Some students get someone else's motive videos. One of those is Mondo, who gets Chihiro's motive video, making Mondo realize Chihiro's secret is that she, or rather, he, is a boy and not a girl. He is a boy who dresses like a girl. And now that Mondo knows, he doesn't kill him. Yeah, that's right. Mondo doesn't kill Chihiro. I believe that if Mondo knew Chihiro's secret from the start, he wouldn't kill him and would instead sympathize with him. Of course, Mondo and Taka would still form their brotherly friendship, and they would protect Chihiro as well. Another pair isn't so lucky. Hifumi follows Celestia around pretty much all the time, and so this wouldn't be any different. Hifumi is found to be the second victim, simply because he's a target, and therefore he is easy to be exploited. Now, who is the murderer is up for debate. Both Kyoko and Makoto decide to work together, and therefore, they figure out who it is. Celestia Ludenberg. Yeah, Celestia had murdered Ifumi a chapter earlier than in canon. So, because Celestia reveals that she got her own motive video. She says that she wants to live the European dream and she can't really do that in the school. Either that, or she gets her motive video where people call her by her real name of Taiko Yasuhiro, and she wants to get out of there so she could correct everybody. But regardless, Hifumi still dies. Celestia is found out as the murderer and is burned at the stake. So, chapter 3 now. The transfer student from beyond the grave motive. Monokuma introduces the Necronomicon, where any student of their choice can be brought back if they use the Necronomicon. However, nobody in this cast is as religious as Angie, and so I don't think anyone in this cast will take this seriously. So that means nobody is killed, and that means there's no class trial. So this chapter could be skipped entirely. Chapter 4. Now, with Chihiro still here, I think Chihiro is smart enough to program the virtual world. I mean, Mew did it, so why wouldn't he? And so, Monokuma introduces the key card motive, but the key card is stolen. At this point, Chihiro would talk with Junko and find himself attracted to her. And so, with that in mind, Chihiro and Junko form an alliance, even though that is only to Chihiro. To Junko, he is her pawn. After everyone escaped the virtual world, Chihiro is found dead. And so, both Mondo and Taka are outraged now that their little bro is dead. And so, both of them basically urge Makoto to figure out who killed Chihiro. And originally, he really didn't figure it out, and neither did Kyoko, really, until Junko came along and blurted out that it was actually Mukuro who killed her. Or him. Yeah, that's right. Mukuro. Junko basically ousted her own sister that she murdered Chihiro, and so when Makoto asks Mukuro why, she said that Chihiro could be a threat with all that knowledge, and she wanted to know what the outside world was like, revealing that she was the one who took the key card. So with that in mind, Mukuro is executed, and we can move on now. So chapter 5 begins with Mondo and Taka on edge after Mukuro has killed Chihiro. Mondo's justice for women is shot a little bit after he finds this out. And so Makoto goes to talk to Mondo, and the two of them start to form a bond a little bit. They both have a connection to Chihiro in some way. I mean, Makoto was practically saved by Chihiro in canon. Well, not Chihiro, it's alter ego, but you get the point. So basically, someone shoots poison arrows at Taka. However, Sakura rips them out of him and takes him to the infirmary. She finds the antidote and tries to give it to him. However, not wanting his moral compass to be restricted, Taka dies of the poison damage. When the class trial happens, Sakura feels pretty guilty that she wasn't able to save Taka. And so, she sacrifices herself, not knowing that it was actually the mastermind who murdered Taka. And so Sakura is executed basically the same way that Peko was. She has to fight a whole bunch of enemies until she tires out. Which now moves on to the final 8 in chapter 6. So, now they have to figure out who the mastermind is. Makoto realizes that Sakura basically sacrificed herself and the trial wasn't really complete. There wasn't really a black end found. Sakura just sacrificed herself. And so Makoto takes Kyoko and challenges Monokuma to a retrial of the case. And so, now that they're back in, they have to figure out who actually killed Taka, who shot the poison arrows. Eventually, Makoto figures it out, and it is Junko Enoshima. She essentially is caught the same way in canon. Makoto inspires the group with his hope, Kyoko calls him the ultimate hope, something along that line. And so Junko is executed, leaving us with a very impressive 8 survivors. Yeah, half of the cast survived this go around. Aoi, Byakuya, Kyoko, Makoto, Mondo, Sayaka, Toko, and Yasuhiro. Yeah, so no one who survived before died in this canon either, and so that's very impressive. With the killing harmony motives, an impressive 8 people survived. Now it's time for killing harmony with the trigger happy Havoc motives. This is going to change up the order quite a bit, because different people are going to react to the motives differently. Let's start with killing amongst loved ones, the first motive in this version of Killing Harmony. Monokuma distributes videos of people that are close to the students getting held hostage. Now, immediately this sets off quite a bit of people. Rantaro, for one, has his 12 sisters all being kidnapped. And so, while he thinks he's a bad brother for letting them get lost like that, he isn't really going to kill over it. Someone who will kill is Tenko, as her master is held hostage. Some of the others have loved ones that are held hostage as well. The only one that we know for sure is Korekio, who might have had his sister held hostage. Now, immediately, Rantaro is not the first victim like in canon. Instead, the first victim is Ryoma. Sorry. I know a lot of you are Ryoma fans, but I'm sorry. Ryoma just was the first to die. Fun fact, had Rantaro not been the first victim, this would have been the first canon death. So, yeah, Ryoma wasn't meant to last long. Now, as previously mentioned, when the class trial first starts, Tenko is the one to be found guilty, because Shuichi would point out that Tenko hates men, and so since her master taught her all of her feminist ways, she naturally killed the first man on sight, which just so happened to be Ryoma. And so, Tenko is the first to be executed. Already shaking things up, as Himiko lost essentially her best friend the very first chapter. So Himiko's the one that gets the character development kicked off, not Shuichi, because Kaede's still here. This chapter begins with Kirumi making breakfast for everybody. Yeah, Kirumi is like that. Kirumi makes breakfast for everybody, and all the students go into the dining hall, with Himiko having Tenko's death on her mind, much like how Shuichi had Kaede's in canon. And so, with that in mind, after everyone has their breakfast, Kaito starts flirting with Maki like he does already. Kokichi starts flirting with Shuichi, although not as out there like Kaito does. And so, Monokuma then introduces the second motive: embarrassing memories and shameful secrets. When a murder doesn't occur within 24 hours, everyone's secret will be revealed to the world. Now, a lot of people have secrets that they don't want to have let out. For example, Himiko, we all know that Himiko likes to think she's an actual mage, but she's not really. Kirumi worked with the Prime Minister of Japan, and she's the de facto Prime Minister. That's her secret. Shuichi and Kaede would have their secrets as well, but here's the thing. Kirumi would get approached by Korekio, because he sees Kirumi as a good person, that he thinks that she would want to be friends with his sister. He thinks about that with a lot of the girls: Angie, Himiko, Kaede, Kirumi, and Tsumugi. He doesn't think that with Maki or Miu, because they're too dark or too vulgar, respectively. And so when Korekio goes up to Kirumi because he thinks that she is the one most likely to want to meet his sister, even though Korekio did actually talk with Kaede, and she told him that she was more than happy to meet his sister. However, he approaches Kirumi because he now sees Kaede and Shuichi basically linked at the hip. So if Kaede is killed, Shuichi would immediately know. And so Korekio would ask Kirumi if he would like to meet his sister. Unfortunately, however, she doesn't get a say in the matter because Kirumi is found dead moments later. During the class trial, Korekio's secret about the relationship between him and his sister is revealed, and everybody naturally reacts with disgust. And so Kaede and Shuichi, working together, yeah, the two decide to work together here. They out Korekio as the murderer. And so, with that in mind, Korekio is executed, boiled alive, and salted by not only Monokuma and his sister as well. This chapter begins with the motive being introduced, $10 million. The Black End gets to walk away with $10 million that they can use on whatever they want. Now, immediately, some big threats begin popping up. For example, the power couple, Kaede and Shuichi, but also the known liar Kokichi, the survivor Rantaro, who poses a threat to the mastermind. For Rantaro, he actually starts to bond with Kaede and Shuichi. However, unfortunately for him, later on when Kaede goes to check on him, he is dead. And so Rantaro, now known as the ultimate survivor, has that survivor perk, and so he was killed for that. Now, there's also a second victim. Since Angie is still here, they have the seance to try and talk to Rantaro about the survivor perk thing. However, before the seance could get underway, Maki is found dead. Yeah, for some reason, they all managed to get Maki into the seance thing, into the cage, and then she dies. So, with that in mind, who is the killer here? Kaede and Shuichi, who now realize why Rantaro was acting so mysterious, they essentially figure out that the seance was a trap to get one of them killed. And so they immediately blame Angie, who, in fact, is the killer of both of them. Angie is executed. Instead of carving marble over a volcano, I'm going to have her do this Maori exorcism thing where she gets filled with water. Unfortunately, it went horribly wrong and Angie drowns. And so Angie is executed, leaving the group in a state of bewilderment and also fear. Chapter 4 begins with one of the students essentially acting like Monokuma's mole. Now, immediately there are some suspicious people. It could be Kokichi, because he lies out his ass all the time. It could also be Mew, because she's very vulgar, and she really could end up secretly working for Monokuma. Now, it's at this point where Kaede and Mew start to form a friendship with each other. We'll get more to that soon. However, in an isolated room, the students all realize that Gonta is missing. When they go to check, they split up to go check for him. And Himiko is the one to find out that Gonta is dead. Yeah, that's right. Gonta is dead in the room. So now the class trial happens. Himiko believes that she is the one who murdered Gonta. However, Kaede talks her out of it, basically kickstarting their friendship as well. Shuichi backs Kaede up with the evidence saying that Gonta would be too much of a gentleman to kill because Kokichi isn't working alongside him. He basically didn't turn Gonta into his puppet this time. And so, with that in mind, Himiko, Kaede, and Shuichi basically figure out that Gonta had killed himself to save everybody. Shuichi pointed out that Gonta would not be seen as a gentleman if he found out that he was the mole, so he killed himself to save everybody. We move on to Chapter 5. Kokichi and Mew still really hate each other, as they always did. However, with that, Kokichi still also torments Kibo, and Oh, also, Kaito is in a sort of depression sort of thing without Maki there. Luckily, Kaede is there to take up the reins for him. And so, Kokichi is still found dead near the Exisals. However, without the poison arrows, that means Kokichi died another way. We'll say it's with a shot put. So, with Kokichi dead via a shot put, the class trial begins, and immediately suspicion falls onto Shuichi. Because Kokichi often follows Shuichi around. He has a thing for him, remember? People really like to ship these two. I don't know why, because Kokichi's a known liar. He didn't really spend much time around Shuichi, who tends to spend his time around Maki and Kaito. However, surprisingly, Tsumugi comes to his rescue and throws Kaede under the bus. Shuichi agrees, mainly just to keep suspicion off his back, and Kaede is executed. She is thrown onto a giant piano made to play Der Flohwalzer, and however, the spiked lid doesn't come crashing down on her, and the neck clasp breaks. Mew comes in, overrides the system, and saves her. This is where the friendship between Kaede and Mew starts to come into play, because Mew essentially overrid the system to save Kaede, and because she found new evidence on Kokichi's murder. Shuichi also finds Kaede and apologizes to her for throwing him under the bus. Kaede almost dying made Shuichi realize that it's not just him against the accusers. There are others who are willing to help. And so Shuichi and Kaede make up, and so the three of them go to challenge Monokuma to a retrial. Which leads us to chapter 6. Kokichi's murder is retrialed, and Kaede is able to clear her name. Now that Tsumugi has thrown Kaede under the bus, she immediately starts to suspect her, and Mew does as well. With all the other evidence that Mew has found, Shuichi could only confirm that it was Tsumugi who killed Kokichi. Tsumugi is outraged, knowing that she has been caught, and so, with that in mind, she begins to rant and rave on about why she did this killing game. She did it the way she did because she thought there were so many threats to ultimate despair, like Kaede, Shuichi, Kokichi, and Rantaro. And so she is executed, and Kibo blows himself up to save his friends. There are 5 survivors in this timeline: Himiko, Kaede, Kaito, Mew, and Shuichi. Well, that does it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope this kicks your 2025 off with a bang. I will see you next time.